Let's get to that breaking news. A pursuit underway. LAPD officers chasing a suspect. And you see it right now there, South Alameda Street and Nadeau Street in East LA. Not going terribly fast at the moment. And you see LAPD cruisers in direct pursuit directly behind this suspect or perhaps suspects.
We're trying to figure out right now what this suspect or suspects are wanted for, but we do know, Gio, our producer, was telling me that the suspect was seen tossing things from that vehicle as police were pursuing it. So take a look. It looks like maybe that front left driver's side tire. Are you seeing movement on that? It looks like maybe they already used spike strips there. It looks a little bit, yeah. You know, it might just actually be the rim, but you never know. We're going to work on finding out if police have used any spike strips in this case. It's looking a little wobbly there to me. It's hard to fully make out with that black rim on that tire, but you do see the driver there. You can make out at least one person. It looks like a man, but again, as you mentioned, we don't know if other people are in that car. Is there, you know, obviously not listening to the rules of the road here, or just blowing through these intersections, as at least 3 LAPD officers do remain behind it.
And I counted 5 LAPD cruisers when we zoomed out, right? It's very tight right now. You see one for sure. But whether or not that wheels are impacted in any shape, form, or fashion, based on recent pursuits that we've done over the last couple of weeks, comparing to this one, not zooming to the degree that we typically see a suspect driving from LAPD cruisers, but nonetheless still dangerous given the fact that you're just going through intersections. It is a very crowded area right now. I see a lot of traffic, not too many people on the sidewalks right now, so that's fortunate. But right now you see the chopper light overhead and multiple cruisers directly behind this suspect's vehicle, and direct pursuit, and we'll see how long it keeps going right now as they sort of just traveling through the east part of LA right now, not going terribly fast, but
picking up speed here just a little bit. You do see and notice that LAPD cruiser right behind it. It's more of an SUV style cruiser. It also is able to have those. Okay, we're getting word from our producer here that we do have Dave Avila on the phone with us. But what I was saying is you do see that they have those headlights, those bright lights, alerting people that this is a situation, on top, of course, the red and blue sirens there. Dave, can you hear me?
Hello, Leslie. Hello, Jill. Yes, I do, and I can see the suspect. I'm kind of surprised how slow they're going. Now, I've been told that they are armed suspects, so that adds something, a whole bunch more into the mix of what we have to do with this suspect.
Yeah, it gives you an idea of why they're trying to outrun police here, but we know that they won't get lucky in most 90% of the cases. But Dave, are you hearing why police originally wanted to stop this car?
Yeah, I'm getting 2 things here, but I think one of them was a traffic violation, and then it progressed into some kind of armed robbery, but I'm not real sure on that. But I do know that they said that they believe the suspects are armed. And exactly how many we have inside, I'm not real sure.
When it comes to armed suspects in this case, Dave, I'm curious because when we call you in these scenarios, at least so far over the last couple of months, we haven't had that type of scenario with armed suspects. How do police tend to handle this? Because we've seen they're not necessarily backing off, but you obviously have to wonder about the safety of both people in the area and, of course, of police officers in this case. So what's typically the approach when you know that the suspects you're pursuing are armed?
And you're absolutely right, Gio. Every pursuit is so much different from the other. No two are alike. And this one now, we know we got armed suspects in it. You know, one of the things that we consider here with the officers are considering is the pit maneuver. Now, usually, we don't pit armed suspect because of the closeness of the 2 vehicles coming together. We think about we're also concerned about the blacked out windows in it. So what we'll do is just keep the air unit on it. Now, normally we keep that black and white behind it because of the severity of the crime and knowing that they have weapons. So you got the air unit overhead. So what they'll do now is they'll just go ahead and just maintain their distance behind it, which I do like. I mean, there's some pursuits where we'll do the tracking, but there's others like this that we definitely don't want to let these suspects get out.
Yeah, and Dave, we're getting word from our assignment desk right now is that this is being reported as possibly a stolen vehicle. This pursuit started about 25 minutes ago, right around 8 p.m. As police tried to stop this black Lexus. We do know the suspects tried to possibly throw some stuff out of the vehicle. That was before SkyCal was over the pursuit. But as I mentioned, it started about 25 minutes ago here, and we've only been over it just a few minutes. But you could see the suspect or the driver there obviously moving into the median, crossing to the other side. This is when it really becomes dangerous, right, Dave, is when they start to go on the other side of the road and oncoming traffic. They don't expect this to be happening right in front of them, but that is why those black and whites are important.
Exactly, and I've always liked that. That's why, I mean, the tracking, there's sometimes when it's doable and you need to do that, but a case like this, I think it's the right thing to keep that black and white right on them. You know, there's so many different factors to be considered. Public safety is number one. That's why they're sticking with it. The air units overhead, keeping the vehicle lit up. The nature of offense, we now know it's a Grand Theft Auto, GTA. And at the same time, we're thinking of not only public safety, but again, of the officer safety too. That's why we kind of hold back on negotiating the pit maneuver. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we consider the speed, things of that nature. So it just looks like, as you can see it in the viewers too, I mean, it's as long as they maintain this speed, I see no reason just to pull off, and I'm sure that's what the department's thinking.
Well, that was the other point that we were making earlier, Dave, is the fact that, you know, in these pursuits, and granted it is what looks to be a residential area where perhaps a lot of people could be out and about right now, and not exactly going as fast as is typical in these scenarios. So at least on the one hand, that's a good thing, but on the other hand, it sort of feels like it could possibly draw this out, because when you blend that in with the factors of safety and trying to maintain a distance while still staying close enough to perhaps execute a pit maneuver or maybe a spike strip down the line, it sort of seems like they're straddling a line right now between safety and also trying to stay within a reasonable range of the suspect or suspects.
Yeah, and that's understood. That's a good point. And the thing is that we get something to stop the suspects. You know, spike strip, with the way this vehicle is traveling around, it'd be really hard to get a spike strip in there. Plus, the officers would have to get out there, and you really don't want to do that. But, you know, some of the other things that I've had people ask me before is just, you know, why can't we block the vehicle in? Why don't we block the road? Anything like that. And even though it's not outlawed with the LAPD pursuit policy, but it does say that, you know, strongly discourage. And so, and with this right now, it's a warm night. Even though luckily we don't see that many pedestrians out there, I don't see people walking down the street or crossing the, you know, the crosswalk, anything like that. Yeah. So fortunately, exactly, you know, we have that in our favor. But the primary responsibility here is, you know, citizen/officer safety. And I think it looks like he's starting to pick up speed.
Yeah, he continues to.
Right now.
Yeah, he continues, Dave, to blow through these intersections, and that alone is dangerous, even at this slow rate of speed. Just because, you know, it is a Sunday night, people trying to get home at this point. Although we haven't seen many pedestrians here, I did see a few moments ago there were people on some of those scooters, motorized scooters there, some people walking. So that, of course, is always a concern. You see, that was a red light, just blew through that intersection there. There's someone on a bicycle riding along that sidewalk, and you just worry about all those factors. As you know, those sergeants who are calling these pursuits, they're worried about that as well, or they take that into account here. I'm hearing that we may be headed towards the LAX airspace, so that may be difficult for our helicopter here, but that won't be the case for LAPD, correct, Dave?
Yeah, that's correct. They got a policy now where some of our ships, the TV news helicopters, will stay clear of LAX airspace during a pursuit, of course. But LAPD, sheriffs, they can go in and they can work at low level. And a lot of people think, well, you can get away from that. But no, I mean, it's very rare that happens.
Look, there's people walking in
yeah.
that intersection there. This is what exactly, sorry to cut you off there, Dave, but that's what you were talking about earlier. It's getting more crowded as we are in the Firestone Beach Street area of Southgate, East Los Angeles there, as this person is just continuing to lead this pursuit, lead officers on a pursuit there. And that's when it truly gets dangerous. But you were mentioning that LAPD will be able to keep up with this vehicle.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why they went ahead and they're just going to hold back right now. They may be trying to get some information, more information on the suspect or suspects. I'm not real sure how many we have inside that vehicle. But, you know, the one thing we always have to worry about, too, is that if we get up close, if we get, let's say we do decide that we might go ahead and pit this vehicle, that suspect, knowing they have weapons, may come out and just start shooting at the officers and that there is exactly what we're trying to stop for. It's any additional danger to the public.
Before I ask you my next question here, Dave, I just want to give a quick recap, just in case anybody might be joining us here as we hit the 8:30 mark. At this half hour, we're kind of keeping an eye on this car right now. It's slowing down a bit, but there it goes, blowing through another intersection with some decent traffic here. We'll maintain an eye on that. But so far, we know that this was reported possibly as a stolen vehicle. Started around 8 o'clock this evening, so a half hour ago. It's a black Lexus that we are keeping an eye on. Dave also mentioned that these are armed suspect or possibly armed suspects, so that's something that we're keeping an eye on right now, and it could have progressed to an armed robbery. But again, we're working to confirm these details and this information as this pursuit is still very active at the moment. And to Leslie's point from a couple minutes ago, we know that we are possibly nearing LAX airspace, so if there's a possibility that our chopper might have to move out of the area, we'll reset and keep you posted, because of course LAPD cruisers are still very much in line with this vehicle, with this vehicle in pursuit right now as it picks up speed, exceeding a little bit over 50 miles an hour there just ever so briefly. So Dave, that brings me to my next point, which is I'm curious about the sort of mindset, or at least the officer's mindset of what could be going on with these suspects. Is there a belief that they are just sort of trying to run out the clock, though obviously that is incredibly difficult when you have a chopper overhead and multiple cruisers in pursuit? Or is this a matter of they're perhaps looking for an avenue to get on the freeway or anything like that? I'm curious as to what the LAPD's perspective is from here as terms of what they're thinking the suspects might be thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, sure, Jill. And what I'm thinking is, having been in the pursuits before, you just want to just stay on the suspect. You want to stay as close as possible. You know, and what you're alluding to is sometimes we call it, looking for a friendly neighborhood that they're familiar with and stuff. But not this case. This suspect just keeps driving in a straight line. Maybe he'll make a couple of right turns, but he doesn't seem to be sticking to any particular area. And as we had said, he's heading towards LAX, and for some reason, people think that once we get into LAX airspace, it's banned. We can't get in there. But the police helicopters, law enforcement helicopters can, so they'll just stay on them as much as they can. And then also we do work with LAX police that are a different unit, different department, but we do work with them also. Yeah. So it's eventually they'll get these suspects in custody.
Yeah.
But, it is kind of curious how slow it's going.
Yeah, he definitely is going slow speeds here, not following the rules of the road, as we continue to watch him just drive through intersections where he's supposed to stop there, but he is leading police on this pursuit here. It is interesting, though, how slow this vehicle is going. Again, we're watching him, or I should say the suspect. We don't know if it's him or her just yet, but he or she there. But you're watching this vehicle just, again, blow through another intersection here. But we were hearing earlier that the suspect possibly threw something out of the vehicle near Slauson and Florence. I have to wonder what that was. A weapon is many times what we see suspects throw out of the vehicle. Did you hear anything about that, Dave?
No, I haven't. And I was trying to contact some of the people up at Air Support just to see if they could relay anything on that, but no. And I've been over pursuits, flying over pursuits before, where I've seen money thrown out, weapons thrown out. So not anything out of the ordinary, especially in a case like this. But and like I mentioned before, every pursuit's different. This is really strange. I mean, with the significance of this. Type of pursuit, and these suspects aren't speeding away, which is great. I mean, I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
But like you had said, Leslie, they're blowing through intersections. They're going through. We see pedestrians in crosswalks. They had to stop so they didn't get hit by this individual.
Yeah. Blowing through intersections, but at a very slow rate of speed there. What is also interesting about this so far, Dave and Gio, is that this driver, this suspect, continues to stay in the same area on surface streets here. This person has had a chance to possibly make their way to a freeway here. It looks like, I'm not sure what they're looking at there. Right, looks like we can see a light shining from inside the vehicle.
Like either a screen or something else. It really is devolving into what almost feels like a bit of a war of attrition, given the speed at which the vehicle's going, the sort of steady pursuit by LAPD cruisers right behind. Keeping an eye on it here. It's getting a little dark, but otherwise, you know, to Dave and Leslie, to your point as well, it's a good thing that we haven't seen that many people out on sidewalks, roads, and anywhere where there could be potential danger, because typically in pursuits like this, you would have cars flying at 60+ miles an hour. But right now it's been, I would say on average, anywhere between 30 to 40, and just kind of that weird balance of not following the rules of the road, but also not doing anything overly egregious when it comes to the driving aspect of this pursuit.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, excuse me. But every pursuit is continually monitored by the supervision. They'll monitor and evaluate what's going on. Does the dangers or the risk outweigh the need to continue the pursuit? And when it comes right down to it, it comes down to, is it an immediate risk to the public? Obviously, this is. That's why I believe that they're staying with it. They're not going to. They haven't decided to track it. So I think that's what's going on right now. So it's like a waiting game here.
And we talked about this before, Dave. This suspect has been sticking to pretty much the same area, and many times that's because they know the area, right? They're sticking to what they know. How often do you see that?
I would lean towards quite often. Now, we've had them on the freeways where they take off, and we've actually seen them go out to the Inland Empire, do a 180 and come back, westbound on the west side back to their neighborhood. And so this suspect here is sticking to the main streets, did hit some small ones, but when they start venturing off and started hitting the little streets, maybe an alley and stuff, that's when you think, okay, let's get ready, because they're gonna get out of that thing and they're gonna run. And then we possibly may have officers in foot pursuit. Air unit will broadcast the description, the direction of the suspect if they see anything in their hands, anything of that nature.
And that's almost what it feels like. Like this person is getting ready to stop at any moment, just because of how slow the vehicle is going and has been going. But it hasn't been the case just yet. We've seen this car hover around 30 to 40 miles per hour, sometimes even slower there. Of course, going through intersections without caring if other vehicles are maneuvering in front of it. But at this point, we have seen the driver somewhat stop for pedestrians,
avoid traffic,
really go slow through these intersections. So you wonder, why continue this pursuit? At some point it definitely leaves the viewer always wondering, why not just pull over?
Absolutely.
Yes, and I understand that, and I do get that quite a bit, actually. And it comes right down to, if we were to allow suspects to commit crimes against individuals, And then at one point we say, okay, that's it. And we do that. But when we pull off, there's always, we're still monitoring the suspect's location and actions. That's trying to de-escalate the situation. But this is totally different because this suspect, it's a GTA suspect, possible weapons involved. So this has gone up as far as priorities. But no, I do understand when people ask me, Dave, why don't we just pull off and we can just get later?
Yeah.
So, well, there's a significance to that, and that is the safety when it comes to the citizens. And so that's why now they're staying with it. But I've mentioned it before. I like the light on there, the sirens going, and it's warning people up ahead.
Yeah, you see someone with a stroller on the sidewalk there.
Yeah. The other point, in case anyone is just now tuning in, you see one, then you see two cruisers there. That we've counted 5 so far. As we zoom completely out, there's 3, there's 4, and then a 5th one was tailing just behind. So it's a significant response to what is going on right now. But it also goes back to Dave, to your earlier point about the fact that you're sort of hanging around the same area, an area perhaps this suspect is familiar with, potentially waiting for an opportunity to just stop the car and fly out. We've seen that before, in fact, where a suspect vehicle just pulled off into a neighborhood and then ran behind folks' backyards.
Or ran into a home that they knew.
Exactly, ran to a home they knew, or a complex, a building complex, or perhaps made it easier. And then that's when a perimeter was set up. That ultimately then, I almost want to go back to an earlier point you said and just sort of reiterate it or ask you again, which is to say, with this many vehicles in pursuit, I think a natural question that perhaps a viewer could have is, why not have one of the cruiser vehicles in the back, maybe number 3, 4, or 5, try to start inching ahead or try and box the suspect's vehicle in, either with that spike strip or a pit maneuver, something like that? Is it just a different procedure, or just sort of a wait-and-see approach right now, or is it something else?
It would be normally up to the incident commander, and you can see all the vehicles, all the black and whites involved in this. Now, in a textbook pursuit, you have 3 vehicles, 3 black and whites. You have the primary, the secondary, and then the third would be a supervisor. Now, depending on the nature of the crime, the ranking officer in the pursuit, in the initial, the primary pursuit vehicle, or the supervisor, which is now the incident commander in a pursuit, can request additional units. If you have additional, so you have multi-suspects and they may all be armed, then yeah, sure, you could get on there. And because sometimes they'll say, okay, hey, keep the primary, secondary, and the supervisor in the pursuit, everybody else parallel the pursuit. But in this case, it looks like they said, hey, we need additional units on this because of the situation.
Yeah, and it looked like for a moment there, it would have been not right here because now it's crowded. You see a bus, and there was also a taco stand, a taqueria just on the sidewalk there. But for a moment there, it looked like it would have been a perfect moment to do a pit maneuver. I know you're a few seconds behind us here, Dave. Do you think they will try to engage the suspect that way, or will they continue to ride this out? By now, I feel like most of the time we do see at least spike strips used.
Yeah, it's because of the type of crime, the suspect's weapon, and then the exposure of the officer that has to throw the spike strip out there. So that's why they may hold off on that. But, every department's different. I've seen the sheriffs before with multi-suspects, weapons involved, and they actually pitted, but it was on a freeway, and they stopped the traffic. It was totally clear. With this here, it's like we had mentioned earlier, it's a Sunday evening, people are out. I'm looking at the pursuit, and now we're starting to hit small streets, so they may be thinking about
small streets and almost slowing down here for a second, David. It looks like a vehicle's just avoiding some more traffic. It was one of those narrow, more residential streets with cars parked on both sides of the road, and that's really what slowed down the suspect, allowed that first cruiser to get very up close to the back of the vehicle. But now we've once again established that separation that we've been looking at for about the last 20 plus minutes or so. And this is right here is a perfect moment. And I know, Dave, you're a few seconds behind. It sort of encapsulates what's been the cycle of this pursuit so far, which is you accelerate a little bit, you get up to about 40, 45 miles per hour, and then it starts slowing back down again. The suspect starts going down to what is typical speed around this time or these types of roads. Now avoiding traffic, making another right turn, a left turn. It's not quite circular. It's not quite doing the same motions around the same exact streets, but we've been in the same area for a prolonged amount of time now, with one cruiser directly behind the entire time. And as most recently, we were mentioning that we saw 5, we counted 7 as just a couple of minutes ago. So it's just, really the best way to describe it is a steady pursuit right now that hasn't really changed in the last few minutes.
No. They have those additional units. I believe there'll be other units in the vicinity that are paralleling the pursuit. And what the air unit's doing is the air units usually. And
Dave, the suspect now going through an alley there. I don't mean to cut you off, but that's the first time we've seen that person drive down an alley here. And you wonder if they know where they're going. Is this alley going to end here? Is it going to dump onto a street? But it's a rather lengthy alley here, and looks like they're going to keep going.
Yep, gotten out the other side.
They're on Gage and Middleton here now in the Southgate area, and will just continue to push on as we've seen all for the last 45 minutes here. Dave, what's interesting to me is we do see the suspect slowing down, speeding up. I kind of wonder, are they making calls? Many times that's what we see, right? Police authorities are able to get in contact with them through phone calls or maybe through their family, correct?
Yes. So the suspects are talking to some of their buddies or their family members. Now, in this sort of thing, since it's a GTA, they may not be able to get hold of the suspect, so they could speak to him.
Oh, wow. Going straight into oncoming traffic there.
There is a lot of communication with the supervisor, the air unit that's going on, about what's happening, and I could see the driving on the wrong side of the road. Just that every once in a while.
And just making that circular motion now, at least it seems that way. You're coming again into these narrow, more residential streets, cars parked on both sides. It limits the range of motion, obviously, and you're getting into these even tighter situations, quite literally, because now you have even more opportunities and more variables introduced into this fact with traffic, with people. There's one person there riding a bike just on the side of the road, and it heightens the fear, right? Because you don't know if this suspect's going to hit someone. The only solace in that so far tonight has been the fact that they haven't been going terribly fast, and it's really just, like we mentioned earlier, it's that wait and see approach, especially given the fact that they're, possibly armed. And it really sounds, Dave, like that's really the most important factor in all of this that sort of slowed any potential pit maneuver, any potential spike strip, any potential more aggressive action toward these suspects is held off by the fact that they could be armed. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You see one of the black and whites there just a little bit ago, that when the suspect made a right turn, there was a black and white. Yeah. That's one of the black and whites that probably the air unit has hanging out in the peripheral. And the event this suspect takes off on foot, then the air unit can go ahead and start setting up a quick perimeter and lock down the block that those suspects.
Yeah, take a look, Dave. We're watching the suspect make their way into a gas station here. It looks like the driver is
either slowing down.
They're slowing down at this point. We're waiting to see if they will be going back into on the street. It looks like they are going back on the street. And I did notice that as well. Our producer telling me, you notice that drone in the sky. I have to wonder if that is an LAPD drone or someone's drone, personal. Okay, we're hearing it is a civilian drone. So that is a civilian drone. We were seeing very dangerous situation, as police always say. Please do not interfere, because their airships fly rather low in these cases. But you can see the driver went into a gas station here, did a roundabout, and came right back out onto the street here on Santa Fe Avenue.
It was the closest that the suspect's car came to completely stopping, if not completely stopping for a good second there. And you wondered if that was it. That was going to be the moment where officers were finally going to put an end to this pursuit and perhaps apprehend whoever was driving. But no, it just came out the other side, and now we're approaching another gas station.
Driving on the wrong side of the road.
And
right here, fully driving on the wrong side of the road right now. This is a very dangerous situation as this suspect continues, gets to a construction area here, continues now onto the wrong side of the road. You can see all those people in the shopping center here trying to get out of the way there, wondering what is happening as that vehicle makes its way through a parking lot and now another alley, a very narrow alley that is. At this point, Gio, I'm not seeing LAPD right behind them, but you know, they have the airship. You see, you see the lights there from the airship, so this person isn't getting away, and there is, right there is that cruiser. The
other thing slowing them down, aside from the fact that it's such tight quarters on these roads, these streets, and traffic. I mean, right there, we've had so many close calls in the last 50 minutes right now. It's almost surprising that and grateful that nothing has happened, that you haven't hit a person, that they haven't hit another person's car or anybody in this within this last hour. But the speed bumps too have really slowed down this suspect through those back alleys, through those tight quarters. And again, now we're back on the open street, avoiding traffic and going through intersections and stoplights at that, we can call it manageable speed, but really it's just, we're still going at this point. And it's a wonder really as to, you know, when it'll end.
And you know, on the other side is a reality of what's happening. You saw an ambulance and a fire truck on the other end as a pursuit is also happening on that same street. So these are just the conditions to show you how dangerous this can be as emergency crews are trying to handle emergencies outside of this situation, you know, and then there's a pursuit or someone that simply will not give up and stop for officers here. I was talking to our assignment desk, and they noticed, it's hard for us to notice as we're watching all this unfold by the second here, but they noticed that this person is pretty much going in a circle. Looks like they're going in a circle from East LA, Huntington Park to Walnut Park, and continuing on in this circle, which is why we have not seen this person leave surface streets in this area and just, you know, make their way into gas stations, into parking lots, shopping centers, and now driving again on the wrong side of the road. Very dangerous, especially given the fact that there's a large median there. They can't just hop on over so quickly.
And Dave, we want to loop you back in on what feels like as we approach the hour mark, because we were told that this pursuit started around 8 o'clock this evening. It's been going on for a lengthy amount of time right now. We've established a pattern, we've established a location, and really this primary location. You haven't gotten on a freeway, you haven't left this area. We have multiple cruisers in pursuit. Does it feel as if you're just, the suspect or suspects are just sort of buying time or just waiting out the inevitable in this case, which is to say there's really no way that they're going to be able to get away, and also it doesn't even look like they're really trying to.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I believe that's exactly what they're doing. They're just buying some time. They may be talking to some of their friends and trying to get some type of escape plan, like it's going to work, and it's not. But, yeah, I think that's what it is. And they're, you know, at first they were staying on the big street, but they're going between a couple of cities. So they're familiar with that area, which is pretty obvious here. But it's just something that's going to continue. And if I can just throw this out, whoever's using that, I'm sure that it's out of range now.
The drone.
But utilizing a drone over the pursuit or police activity, that will be time in jail. I guarantee you, because we've had it before where they got in the way of our helicopter, and they had to actually divert. They had to just kind of just bank that thing really hard off to the right to avoid hitting that thing. And one of those things will take down a bird, you know, so it's a helicopter. So just want to get that out there, because that is very, very bad, and you will end up doing time.
Yeah, we want to remind people, even though this may come through your neighborhood, as you mentioned, that is very dangerous for police safety, for that crew up there in that helicopter that does fly rather low. You can see the spectacle that this has become for some people there standing on the street here. But I'm not sure if we can widen out here. I did see many more police cruisers. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now. Not that much more. I think at most we had 7. At most we had 5. Now we're seeing 7 LAPD cruisers as this suspect continues to basically drive in a circle around this neighborhood and what feels like, you put it, Gio, trying to buy time, knowing that police are eventually going to take this person into custody. Of course, that is the hope.
I want to ask you, Dave, in terms of establishing a consistency of behavior in this case. And I know we've sort of broached this topic already in the last half an hour, which is to say, if you have a suspect who in this case has desired not to leave this particular area, be completely locked in, and you know that from the police perspective, which is, okay, they have just essentially gone in a circle over the last hour. At what point, if there is any point, given what we've already established with the potential danger of armed suspects in this case, do you say, okay, now let's start to widen or really tighten up this perimeter? We have X amount of cruisers, we have a chopper overhead, and try and, at a safe distance, try and box them in. Is that a possibility, or are we still just going to kind of wait and see this one out?
Well, as far as boxing them in, it is, like I had mentioned before, it is allowed, but it's strongly discouraged, and that says a lot in the pursuit policy. I mean, we have seen it done in Hancock Park, where they got a couple of black and whites. They blocked a small street. I mean, I won't say it won't happen, but I really doubt, because of the terminology and the policy saying strongly discouraged. It pretty much tells you, boy, if you do it, if something goes wrong, the officers can get in trouble for that.
Yeah,
but,
Dave.
I think, go ahead.
Dave, we're getting a good look at that driver. We're hearing from our assignment desk that it's possibly a male suspect there, and that's what we're able to kind of make out. But moments ago, you noticed LAPD officers kind of standing on that corner, holding what looked like spike strips there. It looked like they were trying to deploy those spike strips, but the suspect, if you noticed, was all the way on the other side of the roadway. They were not able to do it, so you wonder, are they going to try again? And at what point, because they had been staged there for a while. And
there's that light again in the driver's side. So you can't exactly make out what it is. But perhaps to your point, Leslie, about the spike strips, it could possibly be in one of those more narrow alleyways. It's obviously hard to tell when or if they will use one of those again. But it's certainly provided that best opportunity because of how narrow, constricted it was, and we know there was only one direction that car could go in when we saw it happen earlier.
Dave, what's making this pursuit, and you can speak on this, what's making this pursuit a bit, I would say, difficult for officers is really this driver is not that predictable. This person continues to turn when they want, when they see a street. This is the first time we're seeing them kind of just go straight for a while. Are you getting that sense as well, that it would be hard to set up that spike strip, given that this driver is pretty much making random turns every time they get to an intersection?
Yeah, it would be much easier if he stayed in the neighborhood that he was before. Maybe he'll go back, and then you can always set an officer behind a vehicle, hiding behind a vehicle, and throw that thing out, the spike strip out, if he just by chance goes down that street. But that's about all you can do right now. It's just, and it looked like that's what they tried, but it didn't work. But you call it, Leslie. I mean, you said it's right now it's a spectacle, and sometimes these suspects enjoy that because they know they're going to jail. They know they're going to spend time in jail. So what they're doing is they're just enjoying the ride right now, and they're just driving around because this guy here is just constantly, there he goes again. He's going to start heading back to the same neighborhood that he just left.
Yeah, just did a U-turn essentially at the train tracks there, and just turned right around and is going down the street again. Right around now is when we've seen the highest rate of speed from the suspect's vehicle, like approaching 50 miles an hour, but not necessarily exceeding it, slowing down for turns, narrowly avoiding traffic. People, you see a group of people there down at the bottom of your screen right now catching that spectacle, especially given how long it's been going and how constricted the area is. You really start getting a sense of a lot of people noticing what's going on. And that, of course, you know, in a way heightens the danger because you have more people out and about, and that's something we didn't see initially, and now we've seen a lot more of as well. Going into this particular part of the neighborhood, it's starting to get a little bit darker, but still not losing sight of the suspect, cruisers in pursuit, and making those repetitive turns where it's again going back to straddling that line, Dave, of where it's predictable, but it's really not predictable at the same time, because it's not the exact same turns, but it is all within the same area. So you're caught in this weird repetitive loop.
Exactly. And it just shows you that they're like I mentioned earlier, they're comfortable in this area. They feel safe as much as they can. And then when the opportunity arises, hopefully he won't take off running, or they'll go ahead and just stop and just do exactly what the apply with the. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I was getting another call. Just go along with the officer's directions.
Yeah, you could see it looked like, were they able to deploy that spike strip there?
They were trying to.
They were trying. Once again, this is the second time we watched them try to deploy a spike strip there, but it looks like maybe it wasn't successful. But that suspect now making their way into another parking lot, another gas station. You got to wonder what they're going to do here, and it looks like they will continue on back on the roadway. And, you know, we're coming up to our 9 o'clock hour here, Gio. So if you're just tuning in here for KCAL News at 9 p.m., I want to run down what we know so far. This is a pursuit that has been going on for an hour now. We know it started at 47th and Main at 8 p.m. We know the original want was a stolen vehicle. This black Lexus here then led police on a pursuit, and you can see the driver. It looks like they're talking to someone there. Multiple people. That person yelling at that driver. You wonder, do they know them?
It did a series of stop and starts, slowing down to the point where you thought this pursuit would be ending, and then instead moving to another person a few feet away, and now taking off a little bit down that street.
What we do know is that they have stayed this entire hour in this Southgate, East Los Angeles area here, pretty much going around in a circle. We also know, Gio, that we believe the suspect is armed.
Yes, and that in addition to that becomes the most important factor, where they were looking at something possibly being thrown out of the vehicle, and we don't know if that was weapons or if that was evidence of any kind. That is still undetermined, but the fact that these suspects are possibly armed has, as Dave has mentioned earlier, been the most important factor with this pursuit, because it changes the dynamic of how to approach these suspects, how to deal with them, because you have to keep in mind officer safety as well, and the fact that it's such a frightening thing on top of a safety issue that you never know if these suspects could be firing. So it's something we're continuing to monitor, and still ongoing right now as you're avoiding people, avoiding traffic, and now pulling off into residential streets. And there you see more and more cars, as we've been noticing over this last hour, parked on both sides of the road, as well as oncoming traffic. And it's something that this suspect or suspects have been able to avoid quite frequently throughout the last hour, which is not hitting anybody and otherwise not hitting cars or anything else.
We do have retired LAPD pilot Dave Abla here on the phone with us, who has been helping us navigate this pursuit for the last hour. Dave, we've watched them attempt to deploy spike strips twice, and then we also watched that suspect come up to two people. It looked like a woman in one case was yelling at the vehicle, and you have to wonder if they knew each other, right? Because many times these suspects do stay in areas that they know.
Yes, Leslie, I was thinking the exact same thing. She had moves like she knew that individual, and then when he slowed down, they were talking, and then when he drove off, she started throwing her hands and started stomping. And you don't really see that with people that are just standing on the side of the block. So I agree. I think there was some type of connection there, and I think that's why he's sticking in this area. So maybe he was looking for help, and they told him, no, just get out of the car, stop. It's over, and he decided just to go ahead and just continue. But yeah, I do agree with that.
And right now, if anyone's watching live here on KCAL, on the right side of your screen, you're noticing this is footage from earlier in the pursuit. Again, that started right around 8 o'clock, and that was the initial attempt at dropping a spike strip, or at least one of the 2 attempts that officers were trying to do. Live is on the left side of your screen in the smaller box, but it's really been, you notice the consistency and the similarities, I should say, between the 2 sides of your screen. That's what we've been watching for the last hour. It has been that type of motion for 60 plus
Almost
minutes.
Starts to make you dizzy because it just feels like this person is going in a circle. And for our viewers at home, if you notice the directions, the streets, the location on the top of your screen there, we're being told this is more towards the Southgate Huntington Park area. We do know it says Southgate East Los Angeles, but this is more, this is all happening more in the location of Southgate and Huntington Park, right there on Saturn Avenue and Benson. That is where we're watching this suspect make their way down more residential streets here, not coming to a complete stop there. You see them continue on. It looks like another neighborhood here. It's pretty dark in this area, which also definitely becomes an issue for anyone that's possibly walking or at that park. That's a very busy park there. You saw people on the tennis courts, but it looks like they're going to maneuver away from the park and head down Hood and Saturn Avenue here.
And right now, again, it gets much darker, makes it more difficult to see, but this is not something where the suspect is going to be able to get away. We've noticed initially when we started breaking in for this pursuit, 5 LAPD cruisers, noticed up to 7 at one point, still weaving through traffic, avoiding hitting people. The closest it's come to stopping, as you notice right here, pulling off into what looks like
another parking lot.
Yeah, another parking lot. You see the cars on both sides of the road and trying to get back onto the main street where most of this pursuit has taken place. That is something I want to draw attention to, because we've noticed at least twice so far going into gas stations, seemingly stopping, only to then go through the opposite side of the gas station back onto this exact type of main road and continue the pursuit, but maintain it at a speed that is not overly fast given what is typical in police pursuits such as this. Right now is about the fastest we've seen this suspect go, close to 50 miles an hour before inevitably slowing down and then making their turns and continuing this motion of traveling through this neighborhood.
Dave, earlier you were telling us that this person we know is possibly armed, but you were also hearing that they may have also been involved with some sort of armed robbery here, is what you were hearing as they continue to drive on the opposite side of the roadway here.
Yes, and I'm still trying to get that verified, but as far as the GTA, I'm not sure how that weapon was used, and I don't want to say anything that's incorrect. But that's what I've been told, and I'm trying to get it verified, and they just haven't gotten back to me yet. But yeah, they're just going to go ahead and just keep following this suspect here. I agree. I mean, I think he is just doing like we've seen in other pursuits. They just buy time. As you had mentioned, Leslie, it's a spectacle. All the neighborhoods out now, they hear the helicopter, the black and whites, the sirens, and so they come out to see what's going on. So luckily, I haven't seen that many people, and hopefully he stays off those little streets. But when he decides it's over, I think that's probably what's going to happen. He'll hit a little street, I don't know if he'll run.
Yeah, we don't really know how any of these are going to play out. They never play out as we predict. But what is interesting, Dave, is that we're noticing LAPD now giving this suspect a lot more space than we have seen within the last hour here. For moments there, that cruiser was right on the tail, right on the bumper of that vehicle. Now they look to have pulled back several feet.
And police also turned off the light on their helicopter as well. So what does that say about the state of this pursuit right now to you, Dave, and what the approach, if it's changed at all so far?
And they're just trying another one of the tools out of the pursuit bag, and that's just trying to de-escalate the situation, trying to get them to where maybe he'll go ahead and stop going on the wrong side of the road. But I think that's it's always the incident commander, whether it be the supervisor on scene in that third vehicle or the watch commander back in the station. But it's responsible. They're responsible for the management and control of the pursuit, and also the post incident management.
Yeah.
So at some point, they're all talking, and they're they say, okay, hey, we've tried everything. Let's try this. He hasn't accelerated, so let's go ahead and let's pull back. Let's get the light off the suspect and see if we can de-escalate it. See if we can get this suspect to calm down and start thinking about, well, hey, it's over.
Well, we can tell you that it doesn't seem like LAPD is giving up, because I don't know if you noticed this, Dave, but they tried to once again roll out that spike strip in the middle of an intersection there, but the driver here was able to avoid it once again. So again, it was unsuccessful. That is now the third time,
yes,
if I'm correct.
Third time that we've seen so far.
Third time they tried to deploy those spike strips, and it was not successful. How difficult is it to get in that right position, and how dangerous is it for these officers?
It's extremely dangerous for those officers. CHP officer was hit when he was deploying one. This is a long time ago. But I mean, it has happened. Thank God it doesn't happen that much. It's only one time that I know of. But yes, it's extremely dangerous. And then incorporate the gun, the intensity of the pursuit, how sometimes he speeds up and he slows down. So that's why it kind of surprised me that that officer was out there in plain view. But I guess they got to the point where they decided, hey, we got to do something. We got to try something. So in the little streets, we've seen he's in and out of a whole bunch of them. So I'm not really sure how you would work that, other than just hope he comes down that street and have somebody stand by at the ready.
And after a third try, it certainly seems like they would try again, assuming this driver starts pivoting back toward the areas that we've seen him pivot back to so far this evening, or going on a little bit more than an hour and 10 minutes so far since this pursuit started. But it still remains the same. This, I would say, is probably the most residential area we've seen so far, the most homes we've seen given this pursuit. But still along the edges, driving through, avoiding traffic, construction areas as well is something we've seen. And look, it's almost like a dead end here.
Yeah, it looked like that road was closed, right?
But still finding a way to just make another turn and continue on driving. But no indication whatsoever of trying to jump on the freeway. But it looks like we're hearing another unsuccessful spike attempt. Is that correct? The video on the right side of your screen is what we were mentioning, is that that unsuccessful spike strip attempt. We're looking at 3 times so far this evening where that's happened. We'll wait and see. Presumably that would try to happen again, but again, it determines on the situation where exactly suspect's vehicle ends up, because this has been going on for a while now and still doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. We'll see. Yeah,
it doesn't seem to be coming to a stop. I feel like they've been going pretty slow this entire time. We've seen them make their way through parking lots, through crowded gas stations. We've seen a civilian drone fly overhead, which is very dangerous for those helicopter crews, the LAPD helicopter crews there. And we're watching this person continue to make their way through another construction area.
Yeah.
And at this point, they'll continue on here in this very industrial area. This is the first time we've seen them in a very, I would say, desolate area. It doesn't have many people here. No. You wonder if LAPD is going to try a pit, but now they're on a much busier street, so it doesn't look like that would be the case.
That's essentially what it's been leading to, is using those abandoned areas, the construction zones, the narrow alleyways, the residential streets, to just find a way back onto the main streets, and that's when we see
probably what they know best.
The main traffic and everything else just sort of waiting out the clock, so to speak. But Dave, as you've mentioned before, there's no clock to wait out here. It's really just buying more time and buying more time until we all know where this is going to end. It's just hoping for the best when it comes to safety, because we've seen a lot of near misses when it comes to people.
Yeah, just you probably noticed this once again. The car swerved there, and our producer telling us they just avoided another spike strip. So that is the fourth spike strip attempt, and unfortunately, officers have not been successful in any of these attempts, which is not a rare case here. But Dave, are you surprised that none have been successful, given just how slow this vehicle has been traveling this entire time?
They're trying it on huge intersections, so there's a lot of room for him to maneuver and go around them. And like I mentioned before, it would be really hard. I mean, I'm not sure you could just deploy some units in the side street, blacked out, and then stand in the corner and just hope he comes down. But that's about the only other thing I could think of. I did see one black and white. Been told that they do have one black and white that's trailing him with lights and sirens.
Okay.
He's back a ways.
Okay, so they're still following him, this person there on the ground. But interesting to know, I want to go back to the spike strip. Many people may not be aware, the spike strip is what, about a car's length long?
Yes.
Dave, so you have to be very precise when deploying that.
Yes. It's you have to get out. You throw it out there, and it has a lanyard on it. So when you fling it out there, the suspect, the suspect will run over it, and then the officer that has it deployed has that lanyard in his hand, and he'll just yank it back. This way, the black and whites don't run over it. And the spike strip's not one that'll just rip a tire open. What it does is it has tubes. They enter the suspect's tires, and it lets the air out slowly. It starts coming out. That way it averts any type of collision, where if they all of a sudden they're out of control, they slam into another vehicle, it slows them down. Is what the intent is.
But at that point, it becomes a situation where, Dave, you have that clock, right? Where if you've executed properly a spike strip, now we have X amount of time before that car is coming to a stop, and therefore we can close in.
Well, I would say yes, but I've seen pursuits where they lost the rubber, then they lost the rim, and the vehicle was actually on the drum, and it was still being pursued.
Yeah.
So, I would like to say yes.
Oh, Dave, the suspect's getting out of the vehicle there. It looks like there's a car backing up. He is running to this white car, getting in the back, and taking off. He's been talking to this person. You can imagine, possibly, because now this person is fleeing from officers.
Yep.
You wonder, when was he planning this?
And now we've exceeded a speed here too, because this is the fastest we've seen, and now it's really picking up. This is the fastest we've seen this entire pursuit, as now we turned a new page into what be what at the minimum is an accomplice of some sorts. And now we have new questions as to when this was planned, how it was planned, and perhaps, Dave, going to your point, in a familiar area, making calls or trying to see what's going on. Now we're in a new pursuit in a new vehicle.
With a new suspect.
Yes. Yeah, and like we were talking about earlier, he was on the phone, so yeah, he was talking to some of his friends and just said, "Hey, I need to get out of here. Can you help me out?" And so they had planned all of this, and so that's possibly why he was sticking around that area. But now this is a whole new thing here. So now we got two suspects in that.
You have
which is a felony, of course.
Yeah, you at least have two suspects here.
Right.
Either you have the driver that is now leading police on this pursuit in this white vehicle, and now this has become a very dangerous pursuit here, Dave. This car reaching 70 miles per hour on these residential roadways. There's a suspect, as you see here, this happened moments ago, the suspect getting out of his vehicle, getting into this white car, and the white car just jets off, books it down the street. And this is where we're at here in Southeast Los Angeles and Compton and Vernon, with at least now 2 suspects that police are pursuing. Their original suspect that we know is sitting in the back seat, that we believe was armed, and now the new driver, whoever it was that was driving this white car, and is now leading police on a very dangerous pursuit through Central City.
After what started as stealing a vehicle there, it totally changed the dynamic of this now, because we went from having a pursuit that was located in just that Huntington Park, Southgate area, to now we're moving out of that and speeding at an exorbitant rate at this point, because now that danger we've been talking about for the last hour and 18 minutes, now it's even more heightened, given that there are more people, more cars about, and we've really heightened everything at this point, changing the entire dynamic of this pursuit, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, and now this suspect here is just speeding along. You know, some of those black and whites that we were talking about that were in the initial pursuit, you know, there's no doubt that a few of them deployed on that vehicle that he abandoned, because we don't know if there's a victim in there. We have no idea, so they're checking that out. So they're relaying that to the pursuit vehicles, the black and whites, that are now in pursuit now of this additional felony suspect.
Okay, we're watching this driver on the wrong side of the road here as they're trying to get around traffic. You can see LAPD right on the tail of that white car that they're now pursuing, with 2 suspects, at least 2 suspects inside. What we're being told is it's so far out for us here because we're going into LAX airspace, which makes it very difficult for for SkyCal here. They're not able to continue to follow it as such a close range, but they're going to try to keep our eyes on it as much as possible, especially if this driver makes their way back. Right,
back toward this location. And to your earlier point, Leslie, you made this comment about an hour ago. You noticed the ambulance there on the left side of your screen. That just ties in even more the fact that it is incredibly dangerous, because you have other emergency services in the middle of all this right now doing their jobs on top of LAPD in pursuit of this vehicle as we try to maintain an eye on it. There it is, jumping on the freeway for the first time that we've seen, and now is when things start getting a little bit even more.
Things change now, Dave, right? CHP, will CHP now take over this?
No, they'll go ahead and advise CHP, because that is their responsibility. They'll go ahead and they may just stay with it because of the significance of the crimes now. We have two felonies committed. So they may stay with it. And that's one thing. Usually departments like to keep their own people involved in the pursuit, because we've all been trained under the same, we're all working off the same sheet of music. It's just like CHP. CHP will say, okay, we'll take over the pursuit, but we want LAP to pull off. We got our black and whites behind it, and we'll go ahead and take it over. I don't think that's going to happen, not with this situation here, and the type of crime that we're looking at.
You know, it's hard to make out, but you see them now. We're getting a clear view of that white car with an LAPD cruiser right behind it, trying to keep up there. We know they're going 110 north, headed into the downtown area. And this is where traffic normally does start to back up just a bit. Even on a Sunday night, you'll see the vehicles here. And LAPD trying to get as close as possible to that suspect to basically alert the other drivers. This is a dangerous person. Please get out the way. Their maneuvers are erratic, and the speeds now reaching over 90 miles per hour.
Already avoiding a load of cars. Speaking, pardon me, to Leslie's point about traffic backing up as you're heading there, it looks like Pasadena downtown. Again, this is a 110 north, really changing everything about this pursuit right now. It looks like a similar vehicle to the initial one that we were keeping an eye on, but all we know so far is that it is that white vehicle. We also still don't know who exactly is the person driving, because all we saw was the suspect in the initial black vehicle get out in a parking lot, jump into this white vehicle, and then that just take off. So it is speeding incredibly fast right now, avoiding traffic. You see hitting the brakes, trying to move and weave left and right in and out of cars. But so far we know at the minimum there are 2 people inside that car. Could possibly be more, but that we're still working to confirm.
Yeah, heading still up the 110 north here. It's going to be difficult to see with all the buildings through the downtown area, but it looks like they'll continue on the 110. And good point, Gio, is that we don't know anything about the person currently driving this white vehicle, but we do know that their maneuvers, the way they've been driving this car is very different from our original suspect. Our original suspect stayed to surface streets, pretty much in the Huntington Park Southgate area for about an hour and 15 minutes. They did never try to get on the freeway there, but this person is now making their way up the 101 there from the 110. They've been going 90 miles per hour. They're now on the freeway. So a very different, what I would consider a very different suspect, but obviously trying to get away with the same goal here, trying to get away from LAPD officers.
And CHP is now getting involved in this as well. You know, it now ties into, this is essentially two pursuits married and linked to each other, as we've now started going back to 8 o'clock, where we had what was a, at times, repetitive, lingering, and just sort of looping pursuit in the Huntington Park Southgate area. But now we are getting into a situation where you have to deal with more traffic, you have to deal with high speeds, you deal with the danger as you get off to the shoulder here on the 101, and that's where the danger comes in, because then you have the lanes that are merging into traffic as well, and we know how tight that can get and how dangerous it is.
This will take you to the 5 South. If they head back down the 5 South, okay, they're not going to get on the 5. It looks like they're going to stay on the 101 there and continue on. But I was going to say they could essentially get back to where they started, was the Huntington Park Southgate area. But now they're headed on to the 10 East. And take a look, riding the shoulder there to try to get over that Jeep. Again, just pushing it on that gas as that LAPD cruiser is kind of pushing back a little bit, but we are hearing that CHP may now be taking over this pursuit. You can still see the light from the LAPD chopper above, and that is crucial. That is really what helps law enforcement, right, Dave, follow these pursuits when they're on the freeway.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They keep it on there. Meanwhile, the TFO is doing some broadcasting also. You know, they're giving the information to the units in the pursuit about what's up ahead. You know, is there construction work? Is it slowing down? Is it wide open? That sort of thing. They're relaying a lot of it. And they may also be, you know, whenever there's this type of pursuit, there's times where the air unit is it is air support. We support the ground unit, so they sometimes will say, "Hey, do you want you want the air unit to go ahead and broadcast your pursuits, and you can keep an eye on the suspects, and they might have a gun on them." And they'll say, "Yeah, go ahead and broadcast air unit," or they may just go ahead and just keep it and go broadcast. Suspect turned off his lights, and the other thing too, we have no idea how many people are in that little white car, because the suspect. With number one suspect jumped in the back seat. There may be a couple of people, if not somebody else, in that back seat. It adds so much to it now.
Does it look like they really turned off their headlights here?
Yes, they did.
They turned off their headlights, making it even more dangerous situation. And it looks like they will continue here. They were on the 10 East here. Are they getting on the 710? Yeah, they're heading on the 710. And you wonder if they're going to head back to where they were, because this road can get them back there. But very dangerous maneuver as they continue to drive on the shoulder there to get around vehicles.
And of course,
see it again.
The question being, you know, today's point, all of our points so far, is that we don't know how many people are in this vehicle. We don't even know the relationship between the suspect and the driver. Now, it is safe to assume, Dave, that this is someone who was, they at least know each other, obviously, given the fact that we saw the person jump out of their car, jump into this white one, and then simply just take off.
Yeah, and Dave, you can speak to that. It didn't seem like a situation where that person was getting into a car that he did not know. It looked like the back seat almost was open for the suspect, right, as he jumped in. And obviously they're now leading police on a very high speed pursuit.
Yeah, just like we all alluded to, that that suspect's in there, the initial pursuit. He's on the phone. He's talking to some of his friends, saying, "Hey, I need a little help here. Can you come and help me get away from here?" He went down that one street that I think we all believe that he knew that those people, especially that lady that was jumping up and down, said, "This isn't going to work." And then finally decided he already got somebody that is now going to end up going to jail also once they get this pursuit over with. So, yeah. I mean, he just they do that. I've seen them before, where all of a sudden they get out of their vehicle, they run across, jump in another vehicle, and because it definitely did not look like a carjacking. So I think we can exclude that. So, but he had a friend here come over here and help him out.
And quite the contrast, considering how we were talking for so long about that initial suspect maintaining what was manageable, slow speeds through surface streets, and now we've seen this white vehicle just exceed 90, 100 miles per hour as you're weaving through multiple freeways and lanes of traffic, turning off headlights, and just it heightens everything, right? Because we've gone from something that was, we were talking about 4 spike strips that were executed and tossed down, but then the suspects avoids them, to now a car zooming through a lot more people, a lot more traffic, and entirely incredibly dangerous and entirely different from what we started with.
And we're heading south on the 710. That's going to take us back down the Southgate area. So once again, we'll probably end up being in that neighborhood. I'm assuming. We don't know, of course. He may jump on the 60 if he hasn't already passed it up and head east. I think he already passed it up.
Yeah, it looks like they already passed the 60 there, but you're right back in the Southgate area. And if they get off here, they're in that area that this pursuit pretty much started in, the area we saw for about an hour. Our original suspect continued to just circle around Huntington Park and Southgate. And this is pretty much the area where it looks like we're headed, but we are still on the 710 South as we continue to follow this white vehicle. They have now turned their lights off. We know at least 2 suspects are inside. Our original suspect was possibly wanted for a stolen vehicle. And we know that officers believed that that suspect, who looked like a man when they ran from one car to this one, that person was possibly armed as well. So you have to wonder, is the driver in this car armed? What is the situation? What is the relationship? We don't know all that information, but it seemed like it could be possible that they knew each other. And
this was something that just seemed rather easy for the suspect to jump out, jump into the white vehicle, immediately switching gears from a surface street residential area pursuit into a freeway pursuit, jumping on the 110 North, transitioning to the 101, getting on to the 10, and then jumping on the 710, and now seemingly going back to, or at least back to the general area from where we started. So, pardon me, a lot of questions, Dave, that we still have. We've asked a lot of them. We still don't know the answers to many of them, but I'm curious about what you're thinking right now in terms of the thought process of these suspects, because this is something that we asked you about an hour ago, which is from the police perspective, trying to put themselves into the mind of those suspects. How does that change now that you've had this wild X factor, this new variable thrown into all of this?
It's going to remain the same. You still want to get that suspect. Now, notice how the area killed its night son. I doubt they pulled off, but what they're also doing is they're broadcasting the direction that the suspect going, any off-ramp, anything that he comes up on. They'll try to keep their eye on it. They don't necessarily have to keep it lit up because they can see it. Black and white's in the background. I'm not sure how many we have back there anymore, or if we do. They may try to once again de-escalate it, but I don't think that's going to work at all. Not with this suspect, because this suspect is totally committed to getting away.
Yeah, it
And
looks
so
like there
I know what
is.
the plan is.
Yeah, it looks, Dave, like there is at least one LAPD cruiser still following this pursuit suspect there on the ground. They really have pulled back. And you wonder if that's just to really de-escalate things. You can see in our shot here, we went wide open and you couldn't even see that cruiser. But at one point we did see the red and blue flashing lights there as the suspect continues to just dangerously maneuver down the 710 South going through Compton here. And yeah, you wonder what is the end game here, because LAPD has been pursuing now for about an hour and a half, and unfortunately 4 unsuccessful spike strips could not stop the first pursuit. But in this case, we have a whole nother vehicle now. So the question remains, how much gas is in this vehicle? What condition is this vehicle in? How long could this go? It looked like they were gonna maybe head back towards the direction where all of this started, which was Huntington Park, Southgate area. But now they're near Downey, Norwalk on the 710, and it just becomes a very dangerous situation because they do not have those lights on. So it's hard to even make out that white car.
I was about to say, especially given the fact that this car is going so fast. So if you're a different person on the 710 right now, and who knows where you're going, maybe you're going back home after a night or you're headed somewhere else, but to just, at worst or at best, you're just seeing a zooming vehicle going past you because the only lights we see from our perspective is just the brake lights, but their headlights are off.
Yeah, we hope drivers down there are paying attention because this is someone without any headlights you may not see coming, and if you're not fully paying attention on the road there, you could make a maneuver and, you know, just cross right in front of it. I want to see if John Schreiber up in our helicopter there in SkyCal, does he see any LAPD cruisers following this, any police following this vehicle at this time? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, we got at least one.
It looks like at least one LAPD cruiser continues to follow this these suspects. We know 2 suspects in that vehicle, and it looks like they're getting trying to gain some ground here, right? Getting a little bit closer. But this just continues to be a dangerous pursuit as this person is going in and out of the median on the 710 South through North Long Beach. Now, at some point, they are going to hit the 405. We haven't passed up the 405, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're going to hit the 405 here. If not, then you're going to go straight into the port. But you wonder what this suspect is going to do, where this person's going.
Dave, I also have a question for you that I know it might be repeating, but it's worth because we just crossed into 9:30 as well for anybody just tuning in. We mentioned earlier the possibility of CHP getting involved, but you made a mention as to how that dynamic works. And my repeat question is essentially, how does that dynamic work in terms of LAPD started with this pursuit, but now you're in a situation where everything's changed, where it's new suspect, new vehicles, now on the freeway. Where does that sort of relationship work in terms of let's take this over, or pull back, or no, you keep up with it right now because you've been on it for so long?
I think because of the significance of the crime, as mentioned before, I think LAPD would stay with it. But there may be a point where they request the CHP, and then that's when they will join it. But as I mentioned, usually departments like their own people involved in it. So CHP, and I've been over them before, and they actually in the black and white before, where they said, hey, go ahead and pull off CHP advice that they will go ahead and take it over. So that's what happens. Now, but with the significance of this type of crime and the speeds involved, even if we say that CHP did take it over, we end up at the pursuit where it terminates, the LAPD will respond and cuff them up, and then they'll take them.
Okay, well, Dave, we just saw that driver get on the 405 northbound. And if you know the area here, it looks like they're making one big rectangle going from the 405 to the 110, down to the 10, and then up the 710, now back on the 405. If that was correct there.
Yeah,
if I know my roadways, I believe that is the direction they just took. This, again, can lead us back to the area that they were originally in, right, where they picked up this white vehicle?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're just, when you look at it, yeah, okay, we've been on freeways, but basically we're just making one big loop, and we are heading back towards that area. Now, whether he turns northbound and gets back to South Central or any of the adjoining cities, yeah, that's exactly what could happen. Because, they're on the phone. They're talking. Now it's desperation time, more so than it was the first time. This individual here has all the intent of getting away from the police and not being found. But, of course, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They will be apprehended.
Especially if they go back to that area, that's just telling that there is no game plan. And many times that is the case. There is no game plan for these suspects that lead police on pursuits that last this long. They don't have an end game here, which is probably why we're now seeing them go up the 405. They're going to hit the 110 eventually here, and we'll see if they will get on the 110 there. But we're watching as at least 2 LAPD cruisers are still pursuing this vehicle there on the ground. 2 suspects inside. We know one possibly armed there. I'm wondering if we can bring up the video, though, of that pretty shocking moment of that suspect that was leading police on this original pursuit getting out of the original vehicle and then making their way into this car here, the white one that is now leading LAPD on pursuit. Do we have that video by chance? Here you go. You'll watch that suspect.
The car moves off to the right side of your screen. We zoom in and jumps right directly into the back. And just when it seemed like that whole pursuit was coming to an end, because you notice all the other LAPD cruisers coming in from the opposite direction, no, it just takes off right off the road. And that's where this, we'll call it a freeway pursuit, essentially kicks off, because now we've turned into what now we're realizing is similar to what was a lot of loops and rectangles into the same area. Now we'll see if this ends up back to where it originally started, but using all of the freeways.
Are they getting on the 110 here?
It looks like they are.
Yeah, it looks like they're getting on the 110. There you go, back on the 110 north from the 405, and this is where we first hopped on the freeway here, and you can see that is not LAPD behind that suspect. This is now a CHP pursuit. LAPD has handed things off to CHP, and you can see at least one patrol car behind this suspect. They have the light back on that airship as they are pursuing this white vehicle with 2 suspects through the 110 north. Did I see some sparks there? It looked like possibly some sparks came from the vehicle. I don't know if anyone else
like on the right
was
side?
able to see it. I don't know if maybe something was thrown out of the vehicle, but it looked like there was some sparks that flew near the vehicle there. But the suspect continues to drive with their headlights off.
And that's what's made it so dangerous this entire evening, is just the only lights are coming from the brake lights, and that's to avoid the amount of traffic that's on the freeway going at up to 100 miles per hour, just completely different from what we saw earlier. But there is CHP just behind them right now. And we go through what has been this chaotic pursuit since the shift from the initial black vehicle in the Southgate Huntington Park area to now this white vehicle on the freeway, which started on the 110 north, then transitioned to the 101, and then going to the 10 east, jumped on the 710 south and northbound 405, and now back on the 110 north. So that painting that picture, and that's just the second half. That's just this pursuit. has carried so much weight in and of itself after the tail end of the first pursuit that we were on for about an hour.
Dave, are you still with us here?
Yeah.
We know CHP has now taken over. Many times we see CHP definitely get more, they're a bit more aggressive with their pursuits. Is that something you think we'll see here? And it looks like the suspect is getting off on El Segundo Boulevard here from the 110 North. So hold off on answering that, because we're going to wait to see what this suspect does next, as they're now headed, what looks to be on surface streets back in the Harbor Gateway area. Yes,
he's doing exactly what we were anticipating. He's made a big circle. Now he's going to start heading back to where this all originated from, the first pursuit. So even though CHP's on it, now they'll go ahead and they'll advise, hey, LAPD may just go ahead and jump back on and get their South End divisions on it. But until they arrive, the CHP will stay right on top of them. And to answer your question, yes, CHP does get a little bit more aggressive, but there was plenty of vehicles on that freeway, so I didn't anticipate any type of aggressive move other than just pursuing it.
If you notice there was a bunch of cones set up, and it was a police vehicle as well, a patrol car. That was a DUI checkpoint that this suspect just, bowled through, rolled right over it. And take a look at that. The front passenger side of that vehicle, it looks to have damage. I don't believe that was due to anything that's happened in this pursuit, but you could see there's a lot of damage to that front passenger door there.
Yeah, and that was definitely hard to tell. We actually couldn't even see it based on the perspective of when we initially saw this vehicle. So that's the first time we're getting a closer look at that. But now, this is back to where we all started in the sense of the type of pursuit. Now we've slowed down a bit, going on surface streets, but then in a way it becomes even more dangerous, because you're seeing more cars on the road. You're narrowly avoiding it left and right, and you hope that there aren't people going back to what Leslie called it earlier, a spectacle. And that was on the initial pursuit. Now we're in a much more dangerous situation. Not that the first one certainly wasn't dangerous, it was. But now you wonder and hope that people are getting out of the way, and by this point know that this has been ongoing. We're coming up on almost 2 hours of this right now. And, the lights make it difficult to keep an eye out, but, police, CHP, they've been on this the entire time as they go under the bridge.
Yeah, slowing down right under that bridge there. And there you see that white car
coming to a stop.
Coming to a stop. We're not seeing anyone open any doors yet, but you can imagine that CHP patrol car is right behind it, and it looks like this suspect is going to make the wrong decision to once again take off. So we were really hoping that they would get out of the car and just give up, right, Dave?
Yes, and I thought just for a second that they would just, we've seen them before, where they go under a bridge and then they take off. They leave the vehicle, they run, they go hide on the side of the freeway. But since we had black and whites right on top of them, they moved forward, and I think that kind of blew their whole plan on how to get away. Because now we're not driving as fast, and we have multiple black and whites behind them, all of them code 3. So it looks like this has changed a little bit now, the dynamics of this.
Yeah, and this is where we picked up, right around the area, the same area where we picked up this white car, where this car came into play, right in the southeast Los Angeles area. And you can see 2 CHP vehicles still pursuing this. We've talked about maybe LAPD once again getting in the mix. We haven't seen that happen. Moments ago, we all watched the vehicle come to a stop here, but no one got out, no one opened the doors. We know at least 2 suspects are inside. Our original driver, our original suspect, and the person who is now driving this white car here. But just quite amazing as we watched this suspect drive around an entire checkpoint.
Yes, a DUI checkpoint just blowing right on through it. That's after getting off of the freeway. And moving this chase, this pursuit back onto these surface streets and this area where it just goes back to that obvious concern of people, of other vehicles in the area, and you wondered, you thought that right when you got under that bridge and it stopped, not just for a second, but a good few seconds, and maybe that was going to be the end of it. But no, we're still going Southeast LA right now, and you have to wonder, Dave, what's going through their mind right now, because it's, you made this point earlier about they have to know that this isn't going to end in any other way besides that vehicle comes to a stop and they will be put under arrest, as you notice, four CHP vehicles hovering behind them.
Yeah, you could see I really think that underneath that bridge they had planned to just bail and just take off. That didn't work, and if you notice, now they're driving slow. So I think they're trying to put a plan together, but it's really changed now. So I think they're really worried, or maybe even trying to think about maybe even giving up. Who knows?
Yeah, and
but,
Dave, I think
I sure hope so.
We're watching LAPD possibly now take over this pursuit. It looked like one of the CHP patrol cars got out of line there as what looks to be like possibly an LAPD SUV there, now second in line. So we're going to see what happens here. This is in LAX airspace, which is why we're so far away from that pursuit. But we're going to stick with it as much as we can as they continue to head down South Main Street here.
And of course, this is something that, even if we do have to pull away just because of the dynamics of the situation, we'll keep you posted on what's going on, because as is evident and as will continue to be evident, police, whether it's CHP or whether it's LAPD taking this back over, they are not going to lose sight of this vehicle, because it has now shifted back into what we saw on that initial pursuit, which with the black Lexus that we were keeping an eye on, which was just managing to go between 30-40 miles per hour. It's hard to tell right now whether they are really slowing down to an end.
It feels like very slow speeds right now.
We're getting closer and closer. At least these patrol cars are getting closer and closer. Oh boy, it is so hard to tell. But you wonder and you hope that this could be it. But regardless, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. On top of the fact that is the big concern with the initial driver, the initial chase and
Look
pursuit.
how close that patrol car is getting to our suspect's car. It looks like they're coming up. You wonder if they're going to do a pit here. Yes, they are. Looks like they're trying to do a pit, right? They're moving the car to the left. It's hard to make out. It's really hard to make out from here.
Not all the officers are pit qualified or even have the pit vehicle. So if you notice that the initiating unit pulled to the right and let this unit go ahead, and I think that's what that's about. I think it's that, hey, we have a pit vehicle, we're pit qualified, we can get behind them, and if we need be, then we can go ahead and just negotiate a pit maneuver.
Yeah, that suspect now turning there on East 75th Street. And we're going to try to stick with this. Again, a reminder that we are in LAX airspace, so it's a bit harder for SkyCal to maneuver through this area, as we have to stay away from the incoming planes. But if this is an indication of how quickly we're now following, it seems like that suspect started to pick up speed there, but now it's really hard to make out what's going on. Well, there you go.
They're coming back toward our way. And this happened before, too, when we've been in LAX airspace and we were wondering and waiting to see if the suspect was going to turn back toward a direction where we could maintain our flight above it and get a better eye of it. And it certainly looks like we are right now. But notice all of the lights just trailing behind. And it feels like everything is constricting around these two suspects, the driver and the passenger who was the initial driver in this pursuit that started around 8 o'clock this evening. It's getting closer and closer, at least it feels like it is. But notice all of that traffic. It's something that's still top of mind, swerving around it, trying to avoid it, on top of so close to hitting some again, on top of the cars that are parked along the side of the road. And hopefully not a lot of people around, but just see how congested it can be given the speed and the nature at which this is going on right now.
And we want to give our viewers a heads up here. Oh, the suspect just crashed into another vehicle there head on. We can't make out what's happening.
It looks
but
like
you're
they're
seeing
running out
someone's
through
running,
the gas station.
You're seeing an officer chase
Two,
the
perhaps.
suspect. And it looks like that suspect just took off. We don't know where they went, but I did notice, even though it's hard to see, that the suspect did crash head on with another vehicle. I believe it was at slower speed, but you have to wonder how that other person is doing there. We saw at least one person, we believe it might have been a suspect, take off there, and officers were right on it.
And if my guess is right, those were CHP officers that were in foot pursuit of that suspect. I believe that was the driver of the vehicle because that didn't match the description that I had of the first suspect from the first pursuit. So they were both on him. So we'll see what happens. But the additional units will deploy on the vehicle itself, and then they have to be concerned about the victims involved in this.
Yeah, and you can see one police patrol car making its way down this roadway here. You know, they're all coordinating to try to find those suspects. And as you mentioned, Dave, to make sure that any victims are okay. I do want to let our viewers know that we are getting a 1-minute warning here that SkyCal will need to refuel. So we're going to unfortunately have to pull off this, but we are going to keep our ear out on our assignment desk, as well as try to get in connection with LAPD and CHP there on the ground to try to get the very latest, as they are, it looks like possibly
back in pursuit, perhaps.
Back in pursuit
right
of
now.
that suspect.
It looks like we had so many questions as to what was going on because Leslie noticed the head-on crash there and what looked like at least one person jumping out and going on the run. But now, based on what we're seeing here, it looks like back in pursuit right now in the Southeast LA area, but it's going to be difficult. And again, a point to mention that this is now taking on a third chapter, so to speak, of this chase as we approach the 10 o'clock hour this evening, a 2-hour pursuit that started as one pursuit, shifted into that suspect jumping into another vehicle, and SkyCal is going to have to go fuel up right now. So we'll keep an update on everything for you. We'll keep you posted, as we do always in these situations, both on air and online. In the meantime, though, as we let SkyCal go fuel up,